Hello viewers, this is my long-term review of the 2020 Marin Rift Zone Carbon 2. And basically, if you're in a market for a short travel 29er this year, this should be a bike on your shortlist. So I did a more in-depth first look on this bike a couple of months ago, and there's a link to that in the card up above hopefully, and in the description down below. So I won't go into all the details about it now, but I'm going to highlight some of the things I liked about the bike and some of the things I've not liked about it so much. And later in the video, we'll go for a ride. I can tell you how it climbs, how it descends, and how it handles generally on the sort of trails I ride here in the UK. And we'll also touch on value for money and compare it to a few other rivals in this category. Let's start with some of the things I like about this bike from having ridden it for the last couple of months. And we have to start really with the carbon mainframe. That is a big story with this bike. The big news story is the move from an alloy only frame to a carbon mainframe, and it looks really good. I mean, it's a really compact, nice flowing, smooth frame, and it's packed full of details. So other things I like about the carbon mainframe is the external threaded bottom bracket, so nice and easy to maintain. I've had no problems with it squeaking or creaking at all. As you can see, there's space for a bottle cage, which is a requirement on a modern trail bike these days. The carbon mainframe has a really low sliding top tube, so good standover clearance when you're throwing the bike around in the corners. And you also have a short seat tube, so you can run a long drop post. It comes fitted with a 150 on this size large, but as you can see, I can go to 175 with no problems at all. The one thing I like about this bike that you can't really see is the geometry. Now, it's definitely in the modern or progressive camp with a few other contenders, which I'll talk about later. So on this size large, we have a long 480mm reach, got a nice slack 65-degree head angle coupled to a 44mm offset fork, and the seat angle is quite steep at 76 degrees. Not the steepest, but I found climbing was good on this bike with this seat angle as it is. This is a range topping bike of two carbon models, and it costs just under £4,000, and it's pretty well spec'd for the money, and I like some of the equipment on it very much. So we've got the 12-speed Shimano drivetrain. Finally, Shimano has caught up with SRAM. SRAM pretty much dominates the mountain bike category with its 1x Eagle group sets, but Shimano has finally caught up, and I think they've overtaken SRAM. So we have more range from a 1051 cassette, and that 51 definitely helps on the climbs to overcome the quite high weight on the bike. So good range. And the shift quality is excellent, very light, very precise, and you've got a multi-shift as well, which is a bonus over SRAM. And I think SRAM is starting to look a little long in the tooth compared to Shimano's pretty good attempt at a dedicated 1x group set. So well done Shimano, you finally caught up, and it's nice to see a few Shimano options in the market. The other thing I really liked on this bike, which points to the capability of the platform, are the Maxxis Minion tyres with the new Exo Plus sidewalls. So these tyres are fantastic. They're really good in lots of situations, whether mud or rocks or roots. You can really trust these tyres in most situations. And the Exo Plus casing for me is the sweet spot between the regular tyres and the double down, the dual ply tyres. So a bit lighter than those beefier tyres, but they are definitely enough for me, for my style of riding. A bit more reassurance when you're really smashing through rock garden and so on. So yeah, good tyre choice. There's a few nice details on this bike which really shows whoever spec'd this bike has really paid attention to the small details. So we've got a regular X-Fusion dropper post, 150mm on this size large, and it worked fine throughout my testing, being covered in mud and jet wash, no problems at all. But they've upgraded to a PNW loam remote lever on the handlebar. It's got a nice big lever, nicely made, and a textured rubber material, which makes it easier to hit when you're in a rush. So a nice small detail that just makes it a nicer experience to ride this bike. We also have some branded equipment with a Deity handlebar, so nice width, nice shape, and nice to get a bit of branding on there. And that's coupled with Marin's own stubby 35mm length stem and their own lock-on grips, which are all fine, but it's nice to get a bit of branding where you commonly see own brand equipment. So there are a few blemishes on an otherwise solid build kit. One centres around the performance of the Shimano 12-speed group set in very muddy conditions. Now, I just said I like the group sets, and I do. Good range, good shift quality from the levers. However, after 3-4 hours of riding in quite muddy conditions, and it's winter here at the moment, so lots of mud to contend with, I found towards an end of a long ride getting a bit of a crunchy, grinding sound in the bigger sprockets on the drivetrain. It still works fine, it still shifts gear fine, but you just get quite a lot of noise. After a thorough bike wash and degrease and lube the chain, it's fine. It goes back to excellent condition. Just seems to be struggling to maintain that level of performance through 3, 4, 5 hours of riding through the mud. But as I said, it still works. It's just a minor issue. I'm not sure if anyone else has had that problem. The other also quite minor issue, or perhaps not so minor depending on your viewpoint, are the brakes. So otherwise, these are excellent brakes. Shimano SLX levers, 4-pot calipers, a bigger 203 rotor on the front, so plenty of braking power, and they generally work really well. And you've also got lever reach adjustment with no tools needed, so that's a nice detail. However, I found in some long sustained runs, particularly with the rear brake, the bite point just moves. So you get this inconsistent experience when you're braking with the bite point moving, and it just alters the lever feel. And it's just not good enough in 2020 to have a brake that just gives you an inconsistent, unpredictable lever feel when you want the brakes to be utterly reliable and predictable in every situation. And I've read around on the internet, and it does seem a bit of a Shimano issue at the moment with vague bite points, so I don't think it's just me with this bike, and it seems like a few other people are having problems as well. I'd love to know if you've had any issues with Shimano brakes and vague bite points, so let me know in the comment section down below. But that's mostly it really. There's one other small thing I want to talk about, and that's setting up the rear suspension. When I initially got the bike, I followed Marin's recommended air pressure for my weight, and I found on the first ride, I was blowing through the travel way too easily. It's quite a linear setup. So to counteract this, Marin actually provide a bigger volume token going in the rear shock, which they say is for more aggressive riders. So I took the shock apart, which is quite easy. You let the air out, unscrew the chamber, and then you put a bigger volume spacer in there. I also increased the air pressure by 10 to 20 psi. And those two changes I found solved the problem of going through the travel too easily, resisting bottom out on bigger landings, and that worked quite well. That's about it, I think. Oh, there's one more thing. So this is a size large, and as you see it, it weighs, without pedals, 31 pounds, which is not heavy. And you have got belly tyres and solid build kit, but for a 125, 130mm travel bike, I probably expect it to be a bit lighter. I'd like it to tip just under 30 pounds personally. So that's something worth knowing about. You might be concerned about weights, you may not. So as ever, let me know in the comment section below if you think that's heavy or light for this sort of build. Yes, when it comes to descending, this bike is an absolute blast. It's so quick. And for a big wheeler, it's easy to manoeuvre. Handles the drops nicely. But yeah, it just changed direction so quickly. The steering quite fast, quite light, and just put it into corners just where you want it. Suspension coats all these bumps. Oh, it's so alive, full of energy. I love a good short travel trail bike, and this is a really good example of the breed. Unlike a big travel trail or enduro bike, you don't have to go at walk factor 10 to get anywhere near the limits. They're so much fun. But with the geometry in this bike, it's totally capable, big time. Chunky Maxxis tyres help, loving the short stem, wide handlebar. Wow, it's slippery around here. Yeah, just short travel bikes are so good. I think they're getting better all the time with the geometry like this one. A good short travel all-round trail bike, which this one aims to be, needs to climb well, and it sure does. It's not the most rapid climber due to the weight, which is quite high, about 31 pounds. The geometry, particularly the reach The handlebars feels good. I'm not stretched, I'm not cramped. You do sit upright quite a bit, which makes it even more comfy on the long climbs when you're spinning away to the top. While we're talking about climbing, it's a good time for me to ask you where you sit on the whole lockout lever on rear suspension shocks debate, which is happening in the mountain bike world at the moment. So with this Marin, I found the suspension quite linear, despite putting a bigger volume, reducing space in the shock and increasing the air pressure over the recommended settings. So I found every time I come to a climb, my preference was to flick it from open to the middle compression setting. Yes, you can leave it open and it pedals really well if you have a smooth pedaling style, but it is quite a bit of suspension bob in the open setting, especially on more technical climbs. So there's no real issue firming up the rear suspension. I never actually used the lockout, the firmest setting, I just used the middle one. I found that fine. But should I have to? Is it a problem? Let me know what you think down in the comment section below. Are you embracing the compression levers, the lockout levers, or do you want a bike where you don't have to touch that at all and leave it in open and it pedals just fine everywhere? So I'd love to know your thoughts down below. It might only have 125mm rear travel, but it doesn't feel short at all. Anyway, and the big landings nicely, repeated impacts. Oh, it's good in the air. So very good for a short travel bike. So yeah, you can't measure a bike by its travel these days. Geometry is so much more important. And the build kits as well, tyres, handlebar suspension, that sort of stuff. Yeah, it's this sort of riding, typical UK stuff, it's spot on. Okay, before I wrap up this video, it's worth talking about money and value for money, because this bike costs just under £4,000 here in the UK. I'll put EU and US prices down below. And I think it's well spec'd for money. I think it is pretty good value for money. You've got a good Shimano 12-speed group set, got good tyres, it's a nice attention to detail with the handlebar and the dropper lever, good suspension from Fox. There's nothing I would change really, and in fact I haven't changed anything on it at all, just added a water bottle cage and a mud guard, and it's been absolutely solid. But if you're looking at this bike, you might be looking at a few other contenders and rivals which occupy a similar space to the bike. And probably one of the foremost bikes at the moment, getting a lot of people excited with some good reviews, is the brand new Norco Optic. Now, I haven't ridden the Norco Optic, but some of the reviews it's getting are really good. And it's a similar bike to this in that it has 29-inch wheels, got 125, 130mm rear travel, a carbon mainframe, alloy rear end, and that all-important modern progressive geometry. So a similar offering to what this one offers. And if you look around the internet, you can see that a Norco Optic can cost you about £3,600 here in the UK. And for that, you get a RockShox Pike Select fork on the front and a SRAM Eagle GX group set. So it's a bit cheaper than this bike, but I think this bike is better spec'd for a bit more money. I think the Shimano drivetrain is better than the SRAM GX you get. So the Norco Optic is definitely a contender. It's not a bike I've ridden, as I said. I'd hopefully get one in for a review in the future if Norco want to send me one and see how it compares. Because I think they're probably the main direct rival to this bike at the moment. Another contender could be the Santa Cruz Tourboy, which is also a 29er with short travel. But you're looking at a SRAM NX group set, which is quite a lowly offering, with a 34 fork also. But for £4,200 I think it is, so more money, you probably get a nicer branded carbon frame, but you're getting a lowly SRAM NX group set. So compared to that, this bike is cracking value for money. So I think Marin has hit the sweet spot. They definitely push themselves into a high category with the addition of a carbon frame to a higher price point, and they really move themselves into quite a competitive category. There's a lot of choice at £4,000 or thereabouts. But there aren't so many bikes that are combining the big wheels, the short travel, and that all-important geometry. So I think the Marin does stand out quite well, but I'd love to ride that new Norco Optic to see how it compares, because I think that'd be a really interesting comparison. So hopefully we make that happen later this year. So that's value for money. Let me know what bikes you might be considering in this space and in this price range down in the comment section below. Anyone else bored of muddy trails yet? here I am, ready for spring and summer. Dry, dusty trails, bring it on. So that concludes my review of the brand new Marin Riftzone Carbon 2. Pretty awesome bike if you want a short travel 29er. Time to give it a wash, but before I do, a quick thanks for watching my video, and if you enjoyed it, and I hope you did, make sure to hit that like button down below, and also subscribe to my channel as well. Loads more reviews and stuff coming up soon. And also, I'd love to know your thoughts on this style of reviewing bikes, a mix of GoPro, action, and kind of checking the details on the bike. So let me know your thoughts down below. But that's all for now. I'm going to wash your bike, and I'll see you all again next time. Thanks for watching.